The SEL season is reaching the end here, Dallas. But before it does, we've got two major matchups still in front of you on broadcast. And today, we're coming into our semis right before our finals. And I expect this one to be nearly as good as that finals is panning out to be, because it's Georgia facing off against Converse Purple, number 3 and number 2 seeded. This looks like it's going to be an absolute slugfest through a 3-map series.
Yeah, an absolute run. If I mean, I've never seen one. I mean, considering what we're seeing between these two teams, obviously a bit of a break leading into these past 2 weeks we've seen out of them. But considering that up until that point, they didn't have to go through LCQ, they have definitely gotten their reps in. They haven't slowed down in the slightest. Any team that did have those couple weeks of prior kind of info, prior just practice in general, and even in competition experience, it seems like it still was enough to really kind of tip the odds or tip the scale into their favor. Because seeing what we did kind of just notice out of the two teams is that while I would want to say they rinsed those teams, but they definitely held their own. They just kind of played their calm, steady game they're typically used to playing, and they really just laid the law down.
Yeah, speaking of laying the law down, let's go ahead and lay out how the playoffs have actually panned out. We'll pull up a bracket. We have that for you. Apparently, we're not like Rocket League. We have bracket scenes here for the Valorant side. And while you may have to zoom in a little bit with your eyes here to get a little bit closer for it, you can't see all of the 4 rounds we had in front of us. Round 1, Niner Esports managed to get quite far. Unfortunately, couldn't pan up against GMU Patriots, who are facing off against Clemson, who we saw last week and we're fairly impressed with, in all honesty. We saw Clemson a lot throughout this season and some of their performance, especially over on the B stream. We had them once over there. UKY Blue was taken down by Oklahoma. That was one of those upsets we were talking about, where they were blowing through in the previous round very well against every opponent. We thought maybe they could do it against Oklahoma. Oklahoma proved to be too much, but not enough still against Converse Valorant Purple. Not really any upsets coming out in round 2. If you disclude the fact that Clemson was only 1 seed over the top of UCF Knights Rising. This is about as we would expect round 3 to go. But the Patriots and Clemson, we just felt like wouldn't be as good of a matchup, Dallas, as UGA Black versus Converse Valorant Purple, which we think should go at least 1 map over T. Guaranteed all 3 maps have to be played unless Georgia just pulls out something amazing and just shocks everyone by putting Converse in a 2-0 round.
And if the bracket's supposed to say anything, in previous matchups are going to go ahead and give you an idea or at least a hint of what kind of team would be relatively favored coming to something like this. I don't know if you can really count on that same exact statistic this week. Looking at the previous matchup we saw during last week, UGA and Auburn, that was going to be a 13-4 result and a 13-6 as the 2-0 result that came into play. And even then looking at Converse and Oklahoma, Converse beat Oklahoma in a 13-3 and a 13-6. So a single round differential of the entire series between these two teams. And while Georgia has a bit of an upper hand, but they also faced a bit of a tougher team out of Auburn, being 7th seed compared to Oklahoma at number 11. So, I mean, genuinely looking at this matchup, I don't think anything could literally be any closer.
Yeah, and Auburn was doing very well up to that point, right? I mean, they tripped a little bit at the finish line in our previous round, in our qualifier round, but inside of the actual finals round for our playoffs, taking down UF Blue, doing it in a 2-0 fashion was actually not something that was anticipated from them, and even doing a fairly good map in comparison to what they did, bar in week 3, week 4 of the season against Georgia. They were a team that improved by leaps and bounds throughout the season, a lot like we've been saying for Clemson throughout the season, where we see they started out, we didn't have a lot of, I would say, opinions maybe about how they would play and how they'd pan out, and they've just shocked us. So maybe there is something to be said there for Clemson for the Patriots, but the fact that Georgia was still able to take that Auburn team that's improved by so much and just make it 1 extra round or 2 extra rounds required to finish the job in comparison to earlier in the season, it's very impressive. And Converse Purple, we just know how good Converse is. It's not the SEL that can prove how good they are. It's the entirety of the collegiate scene inside of the USA. C-Val's proven it. Round of 32, round of 16, gets knocked out usually around there every time. They are one of the best teams in the nation. We're super happy to have them in the SEL, but one of these teams will have to bow out here, and it's just a question. It's just a gamble here about whether or not it will be Georgia or this Converse side that gets knocked out first.
Yeah, well, one thing that's definitely going to go ahead and set the tide in kind of in where we're going to go, better yet, in terms of a result for the series, is going to be the maps. The entirety of the layout of where we're dishing ourselves out. Because not only when you look at last week and what was happening, Georgia wanted to play on Haven and Sunset, a little bit more of a standard map composition we saw through the entirety of the series, or the season, better yet, split, whatever we want to call it. But looking more specifically here today, there has been a bit of a switch up last week in terms of the actual rotation of maps, a new map pool to deal with, some things coming out, some things coming back in. And as you can tell, split being one of those big things. That was one of the maps the Converse had to go up against last week. It was Bind and Split rather than the Haven and the Sunset. So a bit faster compositions you're going to be dealing with, and a bit faster of a gameplay sense just in general. I mean, sure, Bind is always the fastest it can really get, but even then Split, I mean, the executions, those chokeholds of that map are just absolutely abysmal of what we like to see so much, which is kind of a good thing here for Converse because they picked it this week going to map number 2, but obviously you want to get things tried and true, find an even lane ground to get everything kicked off with. And Ascent would be no better place to do that. So with Ascent, Split, and then our following last being Sunset, it's only kind of trivial once again and poetic to some degree that we see Sunset being, as I always compared Sunset to being the love child of both those prior maps. So I love to see that these teams are understanding that and leaving that there as their, their farewells if we do end up getting there in the first place.
Yeah, and with God traps for Cypher traps like no longer being as strong, we're starting to see in collegiate some of those sentinel choices kind of follow suit, right? The changes
Right.
for who you can pick. KJ's become a little bit more popular. That's actually been trickling up to the semi-pro scene and throughout Ascension, where we're seeing teams say, okay, we know that Cypher is still really
What
good,
am I
still is probably
looking
the
at?
best Sentinel in the entire game. We can start to make those adjustments and say we can do a little bit better with maybe a little bit more. Because if you don't start to make those agent differences and you don't stop playing mirror matchups constantly, you're essentially playing CS2 2.0, right? Just a flashier, more callable version of Counter-Strike, where everyone's the same exact kid, and you've just kind of stagnated in terms of your meta choice. Great part about Valorant, your agent selection can differ, and we're seeing that pretty darn heavily from this
Yep.
Converse roster stepping into Ascent. ISO's on the board, Yoru, so you're double duelist, which is popular for the map Ascent for a lot of collegiate teams at the highest level. It's not going to be something like a Jet alongside a Reyna or a Jet alongside, I don't know, something like a Yoru for sense for Avian. It's a ISO, so no way to close the distance. A lot of information and a lot of destructive frag potential on this offensive side. If you combo that with a Bram for easy smokes, almost every smoke simultaneously placed at once if you really wanted to, alongside Icy, who's been a fragger all season for every season of CVAL and for SEL, and Arctic on that info. This is a dangerous Converse team that Georgia's gonna have to bring what is considered standard for the map of Ascent against.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering really just as soon as I saw it, I couldn't help but have it. Just kind of had that outburst of saying, what am I looking at? And the one thing I could at least, first thing that came to mind was going to be a miracle because I've always asked for something in a different composition on this map. And Converse has brought exactly that. Going ahead, twisting the entire narrative of what we see on this map over and over and over again. UJ sticking to a tried and true, which I mean, while you can't really go ahead and blame them too much, and even then, I remember Oklahoma during the grand finals last year saying, "Hey, Mick, look out for this. We're running something different." If only it was a Converse team up there, I would have done some unspeakable things just to see something like this show up in that exact circumstance. But I mean, looking to see what we're dishing out, what Converse is working with, I mean, it kind of fills that same exact role. The most important thing, we always see the KO. While the information is great, it's more so having that pseudo duelist, having somebody to fulfill that role in case that duelist does die because of how small this map is, how easy it is to execute onto these sites. So you don't really need every piece of utility on the planet for that. The Ice is going to fill that role exceptionally well, especially when you're looking at no ciphers really locking you up here on your entries to site. You're not having to overdraft and just kind of just go right through that with the Jet. It's saying, hey, we can just walk on the site as long as we win our gunfights. The chamber with the operator, with even him, just more so a tour de force being coming into play to the middle of the map and locking down these areas because we've seen a lot of teams really start to lose that big picture and lose that middle avenue of the map and just kind of get that greater grasp of what's going on. So Converse, I think if there's a lot of teams that could try to really implement this entire strategy into their gameplay, it would be the guys who can really just frag through and through like them.
I think the combo is going to be Puffin and Avian. Puffin laying down other smokes. If we're talking about the B site, back towards defender spawn, up inside of market. That gives Avian the chance to relocate inside a boat, be the player that pulls switch like you'd expect Side, your Jet to be for the UGA side, but just Jets in general on the map of Ascent. Pull that switch, get the team into sight, and then they'll start to deal with any of that destructive utility that Sentinel would place on the objective, which for Zach's case for UGA is likely just going to be up on that catwalk, just trying to ensure that if you're going to take that short route, the fastest conceivable escapable way onto the site and get that plant down in default, you want to make it at least dangerous, slow it down, stall them, make matters, at least a little bit more precarious so you have a chance to get a gunfight going your way from back of Boathouse or from behind the Radiant stack, depending on how aggressive or how far forward you want to play. And you have Arctic to deal with all that utility. You can counter a lot of that KJ prowess, a lot of the dangers that are there with a smoke off towards defender spawn, which Puff and Brim has quite a few of them to go all simultaneously. Door switch, you don't have to worry about market. Shock dart out the util, and you've got Converse now essentially able to take that site and essentially make B just a proving ground for UGA to prove that defensively this default selection is still strong and viable against it, but they'll have to wait 12 rounds. They're starting off on defense, and to be frank, Converse's defensive lineup is going to be very reliant on Arctic to tell where they're coming from with no KO 0 point, and very heavily reliant on the smokes to stall out UGA.
Well, better yet, when you have a recon and when you have a rendezvous that's going to be able to kind of proc that quickly out of your chamber. I mean, you're not really stressed too much about utility. You're using recon for that.
One enemy
you're
remaining.
Going ahead, swinging out, taking fights, not even winning them, but still getting all the information in the world, letting you know who exactly is there and what are you up against. So seeing that already, the rest of the team has done more than enough work to clean up house everywhere else on the map, you're seeing it's purely down to a 1v4 kind of situation with Aki and the rest of the team trying to just go ahead and do what they can.
Team
Obviously, one
Ace.
trying to go there, having a bit of fun, get the mental destroyed earlier on with that melee in hand, but I mean, that's just not going to happen. 3 players alive for Converse on a round. That doesn't matter how many players are really sent at the end of it. It's just how many sheriffs do you carry over. And that's still 0 because none were bought in the first place. It comes down to the money that's going ahead and being invested in the next. So you see the 2 Guardians, the Outlaw, the Spectre, 3 Guardians, better yet, and a Ghost coming through for one of these players. They're wanting to go ahead and make sure not to play just the second round. They want to make sure to have themselves a darn good shot at that third one when it comes around.
Yeah, Guardians have become so meta, it feels like, in a second round after taking that first, and it's just a freebie, it feels, for a lot of defending teams, especially to control the distance and control the pacing of where an attacking team can play. But this is where your attacking team will have to be very reliant on things like a paranoia, things like your dark cover, to make sure that they can close off those sight lines and get closer to sight so that you have a better advantage in terms of using those sheriffs you'll bring after that first round loss. And Georgia did net themselves a good first blood off the back of that, but since then has been fairly silently lost one of their own in the process. 2 down central to hell. Geo will go ahead and send up the double tap, looking to maybe go for more. Still has the barrier up and over him. Geo will have to make the choice quickly to drop down. Needs cover off from a Bulldog of Arctic off towards the side of Jin. But it's Arctic extending and finding a frag, and Icy out from inside a tree. A disastrous angle maybe for Side to steal the round. The 3K comes through, and a Sheriff proves too much to deal with for Converse.
A bit of a buy and a bit of a banger coming out there from UGA. I mean, able to go ahead, not only find themselves a bit of a successful take, losing a lot of health in the process, but it really comes down to making sure to find those right kind of circumstances for the fights that follow and not overextending into that spawn. Understanding that you guys got to play off these picks. You got to collectively do that damage. But even then, we talk about not lining up, finding the pinch, swinging simultaneously. Sometimes it results in a lineup. And we see that unfortunate truth happen a lot here. But sometimes also swing a 1-by-1, it's just not going to look all that hot because, well, it's just going to give your guy a chance to warm up. So there it is, already going ahead, get on the board. UG is like answering an absolute flurry of passion as things go into the next one. We have full buys on the side of UG. Like, we're expecting nothing but just an absolute run through for a round like this.
Yeah, Converse tried to get over greedy. They had to get those frags back. They had to try to vie for a rifle.
Remaining.
But UGA know that they can get that information, punish Converse for extending so far forward, and essentially just take what was going to be a guaranteed round anyways and make it even more so. Not a single weapon drop. So 2,900 credits, 2,700 credits, whatever it may be, that you're spinning across your kit, even for something like a Bulldog or a Guardian, which Tins has in their hand. You don't have to worry about having lost that money and having to buy up going into round 4. The value's been found. The mold has been broken, so to say, as it wasn't a 2-1 start, but in fact a 1-2 start in the other direction. But it is still shocking to see UGA come into such a fervent way and just shock Converse's first round success, who now have to decide, how can we change up round 4? And apparently, Icy wants to do it with an operator despite one of their players on the team not having a rifle to their name.
I mean, it's just Icy, that operator, though. You got to go ahead and get that rendezvous play. You got to have that operator work with. We talked about the information given off the chamber, just going ahead and peeking out. The issue with that is you're not going to be able to swing as fast as you would with, say, the sidearm in hand, where you can go ahead, throw it out there, find a hit, get out scot-free. we're already seeing that, I mean, players are just getting punished for overextending and trying to look for these early shots because with these guns in their hand, big as they are, and especially when you're ADSing, you'll be taking a lot more bullets. Speaking of Arctic, already able to go ahead and open things up, getting the trade there onto the jet that saved round number 2 for UGA Black, but it looks like the rest of the team, they have different plans. While you have a couple of ideas over towards that B side, a couple players being allocated, it is the A side. They want to go ahead and take this hit off. They're going to go right to an operator. While the first shot may be missed, you got to hit the second. And Icy has plenty of chances left remaining.
Yeah, though Icy doesn't really have eyes for the next few moments, so Dark making things easy. The shot opportunity they're hoping for back to Bays. No winery hold can be held for UGA Black, but Aljon able to spot out Icy further, but they missed the pit. Now Icy must be rushing on, and does manage to get the frag. Puffins wrapped back and around and has secured themselves 2 more. Zach now the only one remaining, able to take out from the flank all the way in from Courtyard and remove the dangerous player. They do have control of the spike, and you'll have to start to make the decision when to extend. Gio's already gotten it to half. Can maybe test the waters even further, force Zach to overcomplicate things. And the Zach has no problems waiting out your ISO. That's UGA Black now securing 3 rounds in a row and taking that controversial buy by Converse and saying, yep, you're gonna have to do another save because that round went very far the other way.
It's just unfortunate there even too. I mean, looking at what could have happened there, Gio could have stuck that defuse at any point in time, already being a half, and just really secured that round. But instead, I mean, you know, you want to take the fight there. You don't know when Zach's going to swing and not swing, and especially with 3K to the name and sitting at 6 kills for the entire map so far, so early in. You know that, I mean, eventually, how does he not have the ego? Just go ahead and swing out immediately, wanting to find that kill. Well, it was a health detriment, which played a really big part in that to go ahead and get started off with, but everything following, it was just more so playing those mind games, which is there to a T. So looking once again, look at the execution. We've seen UGA come out for the depths, not once now, but twice. So we get to see whether or not they can really just drive this thing home, because this is now Converse once again on a round that isn't looking too hot in terms of the versus. And even then, more so, it's not going to get hit for a particular round, probably for the entire game. We're probably not going to see Icy want to break that operator too much, because when you look at the rest of the team and what's happening in the firepower, you don't have very many team shots going on.
1 enemy remaining.
The successes that has been going in Converse's favor have been so few and far between that UGA know that the moment they get that first blood, even a second blood afterwards, it's just a guarantee they can start to walk forward, hold that W key, and just direct the tempo of that round. Dominating performance in round 5, as would be expected in a Thrifty for Converse. Georgia have just thrown this map of Ascent essentially into a tizzy. Is 4 in a row where the operator choice from Icy had failed the first time. You try to make them think, you try to make them guess if they can optimally bring it another. And Icy still says to us, we want a piece of that heat. We want to test the waters. Round 3 wasn't nearly enough. Or round 4, I should say, wasn't nearly enough for it. We want more. And finally, all 5 will have a rifle to go with, as Arctic had held back previously, and this time says the whole team's got the eco. We may be a little strapped next round, but our loser's bonus is at max. We're going to try to take advantage of it.
But keep in mind, this is the scenario of, you know, one single point in time when you have the buys going off is a bit of a detriment to yourself. When you're doubling down, buying 2 of those operators, it's not just a gun and a half at that point. It is 3 entire guns. It is 2 rounds you could have bought, another teammate you could have purchased up as well. So it's a bit awkward, but you gotta hope that your teammates can really just go ahead and clutch it out and make this round worth it. And unfortunately, Gio can't do that. His side ends up winning that fight. It looks safe and Arctic there on site. They would go ahead and make quick work of that. And as you get the cleanup there, seems like Converse is right back on track to get themselves at least one more run on the board to get themselves to a 2-4. But it's still 2 players remaining. There's still 4 on the side of Converse, and there's still a lot of games to be made. We've already seen UGA come back from crazy things like this. Zach on a 4K earlier. Could have seen Aki maybe have the time of a life right there, but it's just not enough. You see Converse closing things out, bringing over 4 ultimates to the next one to be working with.
You don't need a duelist that can necessarily close the gap and close the distance. If you have a duelist or a pair of duelists, it feels like, for Converse, that will micromanage their way into a successful 1v1, or really just try to usurp as much possible control for an attacking team when it comes to their defense. We see Gio trying to do that, and we saw that actually a lot previously throughout our playoff styles, where we see the ISO come out over on Haven, and we see them use the ultimate to rip away one player, kind of throw a lot of the player count on site, or even for a retake out of the game, essentially, for the next few seconds, and allow your team to quickly try to frag it back, or maybe even just to use that Yoru for the early information to draw sight lines and get those quick pop flashes around the corner and just find those easier frags for you. Here's an orbital strike, though, to force teams away from default plant. Arctic, though, able to secure a nice frag with a shock dart, but also managing to, unfortunately, hit the teammate in the process. This could be a problem for Converse, as they had managed to just barely, for a moment there, get that equal 4-on-4 in this post-plant scenario, and now have to do it with the less players in hand. But that's why Arctic's brought the big boomstick here. Odin up, down goes their doppelganger of Aki. Side forced to make decisions about where they should head into, but Aliens on side and using their ult for intel. Dimensional drift will be closed. Now the only one standing, Baze Intense, showing that they can get the job done from down below in hell, and they send all 3 remaining for Converse there.
Yeah, just another round there from UG. I mean, understanding when that spike goes down, just things are not going in Converse's way. They want to have that initial hold. They want to extend. They want to make sure their life is miserable before they even really cross that midway point of the map. And I mean, that just has not been a success story so far, especially when you consider the amount of inventory that was there for Converse in that last round. The Orbital Barrage, the Hunter's Fury, I mean, the ISO ult. I mean, even then, the Torch Force, if you didn't want to end up investing, say, another 4,700. I mean, it's right here to take play in a round like this, but even then, look at the rest of the team. Not the best buys on the planet. You're hoping to once again kind of play these long-range situations. And, I mean, it seems like long range, close range, no matter where you go, UGA spread themselves thin enough where they still feel the structural integrity of the team, but still together enough where I feel like they can just kind of have the freedom of just running out.
Side with the great covering fire, giving the space needed to get your player up, get your KJ in, and Zach put that lockdown down. Maybe get your chance to get onto site unscathed, but IC has something to say about it. They can't afford an operator this round, but they can still bring out the Tour de Force. The ultimate keeps saving you a couple credits off the top. Frags go each direction, 2 for 2, and Spike's now under flame control for Converse defense. But ISO Geo gets a little bit overzealous, extends too far to stairs, and costs their team a manageable 2v2. As Aki reads the play, reads the map, and uses their third eye to send a shock dart straight to the loving feet of Avian remaining off towards Catwalk.
Yeah, an outstanding start here. I mean, just really driving this thing home, and even then, finally, Converse kind of their hand forced to go ahead and opt into a timeout. I mean, this makes perfect sense. You've already seen UGA go ahead and guarantee themselves that minimum, I mean, just round or half, better yet, even. But even then, I mean, you look at it, it's one more round after that, and another round after that, another round. It just feels like an entire snowball effect that Converse can't really figure out the entire formula to bring this either to a slowdown or even to a halt. It just feels like sometimes these gunfights go in their direction. They're thankful for the result. I mean, they're happy it happened. Sure, they got the 2 rounds, but I mean, everything past that point, it just seems like too many times they're losing too many players too fast. And there's just too much going on for them to really go ahead and assess this situation. So I think, honestly, calling this timeout, slowing things down, getting a better understanding, and even then more so, I'm not really sure who could really be at the head of that, because, well, when you look at his team, when you look at what's going on, it just seems like George is just doing a great job on their defaults. They're winning their ones in Converse. I think even then, the one suggestion you could get to them initially is to say, just slow down, play for the retakes, don't lose too many bodies too early, or just play on site. That's not an option for their composition. Yeah. And while you want to give them the credit for throwing this thing out there, that's also where the pressure really starts to kick in and make it work.
You can build an agent composition that's strong for one side over the other, but it still needs to be viable for the opposing end. And right now, Georgia are proving that this default agent selection works for both sides. And not only is it working for the attack, where Converse have conversely built their strategy, it seems like, in terms of agent selection specifically for that side, it's working dominantly against what you have in your pockets. And they're not going to have to, well, deal with the consequences of that agent selection, because they know what can be done and what will be done on either side, because it is that default. It is that status quo. Converse to find that first blood, and now sending an Alidrone out in through B main, forcing Zach to maybe wait things out a little bit longer. The team is starting to compress very quickly in through central yard, down through bottom mid, and maybe with a chance to find a frag in through that market door. But Geo double tap up, sends out, tries to destabilize Zach. Zach still holding on, gets their frag, maybe more, but Arctic could be uncovered if it wasn't for the fact that Aki hadn't taken that space fast enough through market, and the team now needs to second guess whether or not B is truly theirs, or if they want to lap all the way through defender's spawn and try to take that A site where base is completely guaranteed. Site is free. It's just a matter of questioning where that last player who was defending it has rotated off towards.
Yeah, the 33, I mean, you already see the rotations queuing over back towards this A side. You understand
30
the Omen's
seconds
got
left.
went ahead, flipped through the cracks, went to the back of the A side, saying that this should be good. But I mean, already look at that, knocking one player down. Base is probably going to get
Last
another
player
one. I mean, just
standing.
look at that one-to-one matchup. Side staying alive, going ahead, getting the job done on that side. I mean, it's just that situation again and again and again where it's just
Spike planted.
You're hemorrhaging players on the side of Converse, and is that too fast a pace for you to really go ahead and register what exactly is going on? So able to clean up one
enemy
smoke going
remaining.
down, while one of the duelists out of Geo isn't looking all that hot. Avian can find at least something in this round, but it's not enough to go ahead and clean up house and finish the job. And that's something we were looking at going into the second half. That, well, Geo, this is supposed to be one of these players that you're expecting to at least get, I mean, a valiant amount of kills on this half.
Right
able to go ahead and at least manage themselves, you know, win a couple ones here and there. But it's not only just the 3-9 that I'm looking at, but it's also the matchup of the duelists, the aggression that we're seeing from both these players out of Side and Geo. And it's not just a ratio of this player to this player. I mean, Side is just winning against, it seems like, everyone. And Geo just seems to be on the
revealing
side
area
of the board right now. So that's something I want to see really kind of turn around. Maybe it's an ideology, kind of mental stack, or just kind of a way of playing for Geo specifically that's going to turn up on the offense. But as it stands right now, it just is not there yet.
Geo should start to do better when they transition over to the attacking side. Conceivably, you'll have an operator in play for UGA on defense. Your double tap will at least keep you alive for that first shot and give your team space to either barrage that player down with vandal shots going the other direction, or, you know, at least to try to get into a new gap, get into a new cubby, and of course a secondary fight if possible. But speaking of that operator that we were alluding to in that second half, Icy has one in their hands here, still in the first, hoping to maybe catch a player off guard. That's a little bit of a misplay, so to say, on the extension forward. Gets no value out of it, and in the process actually gets nano swarmed in, is now dropped below 100 HP, has lost all of their armor, bar for 3 at the end, and Icy's just a hit or two, sorry, 1 at the end, and has just a hit or 2 away from essentially being taken off the board, and you now have no utility either to work with. As the null command comes out, UGA have put their team in a very good spot to maybe conceivably take bottom mid, but they're losing all these wild swings from Converse. Leading into the scenario, not being pressured too much, they can start to claim a little bit more control, cinch upon the offense of UGA, and essentially capsize the structure of their offense and say, yeah, you spent the first 30 seconds fighting for this control. We're going to take it right back because you let up for just a single moment.
10
as Base
seconds
baits
left.
out a shrouded step, and is very aware of the fact that their life is not going to be here for too much longer. Maybe hold on to this rifle and pray. If it wasn't for the fact that Avian's got this wraparound, and may be able to catch Base off guard, and there it is, the shots to connect.
Yeah, I mean, just a great round there. I mean, even you see a player shutting down Side. I mean, honestly, if I had Dr. Strange on Hot Dial, I would be able to tell you what exactly happens in that situation where Side gets the kill rather than getting killed in that process. But if I had a hunch, or at least just looking historically at this game, I guarantee they press that W key. They push onto that site with no problems whatsoever. But as soon as that player dies, you can see the hesitation, everybody else following suit to the middle of the map, saying, our man just died. What do we do now? How do we go about this? How do we execute onto a site now? Tense is somewhere else, trying to go ahead, get the clearance, get that kind of double split scenario where we got the team just kind of scattered about the map. And right here, this was supposed to be our guy. And while he's won the majority of his fights, it's those rare circumstances where you see where gods do bleed. So already Converse able to go ahead and manage to get that done. They understand that that is their biggest threat. If the Jet dies, it feels like the team is going to be insinuating in a domino effect that you just can't really put a halt on. And while you can't really dictate the pace and just kind of throw Side out there in a 1v1, technically you do have Geo who could do that, but that's not the person you really would be taking.
Aki blind fire. This is our cover up on Rafters, and somehow still Avian gets their head lopped off their shoulders. Now Arctic is alone up in Rafters, waiting for the team to step forward. They need to find a single player to kind of claim space as soon as possible, and they're hoping that Geo can be it, but Geo's not been a consistent fragger for this team. And even with Geo dropping below, Side still gets the kill. Double tap means nothing. Of enough shots tag against you, and Side has been the dog in that seat the entirety of UGA's offense. Here's the Hunter's Fury. Arctic hitting tents. No real chance to get an extra tag off as both sides trade out these ultimates. Zach, though, sneaking through the smoke now. A chance left extending the sight. Worried about Icy, but Zach has no worries. 3 kills in this round, and UGA are up to a dominating
Last
8,
round in the
still
half.
a chance for 9 on the horizon.
Yeah, it's all side until that spike goes down. That's all Zach. I mean, it's exactly what you expect out of a team, just more standardized, more slow, more methodical, just working the mechanics of the game and playing into their respective roles. Not overextending, not freaking out. Zach always likes to set up towards that B side, get that kind of the setup, understand if there's a player anchoring over towards main, overextending. Let that turret do its job. But the turret can only do so much. It's only there for information initially. When you get in that post-plant scenario, what better sentry than the player themselves and the crosshair placement just nailing everybody in the process. Speaking of crosshairs, Geos has to line up here, and that's the first expansion we've seen so far to go in their direction. So a huge hit to get things kicked off, but while you are in an alternate plane trying to win your one, everybody else in your team in the process hasn't won theirs.
That's a huge play
Last
from
player
Converse, using
standing.
Geo and using Avian's ult, essentially in tandem. You send somebody in for the 1v1. If you lose, if Geo loses, which, to be frank here, Dallas, he's been losing a lot of their 1v1s throughout these firefights and these rounds. If you lose, Avian can step out of the dimensional drift and pick up that frag as the player essentially steps back into this domain, step back into the foray, and it gives you an extra chance to knock another player off the board and then have the rest of the team send themselves into that and sort of control inside of Octopus. And now Geo's alone. You've gotten your 1 kill this round. Can you get even more? You'll need 3 on top of the 1 you've already gathered for yourself. And this lockdown is just buying time in perpetuity. She'll send your wall in through A main, not even having a chance to touch that spike. Both sides of B main are, A main are under control. You start to take some shots off towards wine, but you get dined instead, and Zach's got another 3K in back-to-back rounds to get UGA up to 9.
Switching sides.
Yeah, I mean, after already just investing in the ultimate, you can just really throw these things out the water as much as you want. I mean, that was the last round of the half, and we ended up seeing Zach have enough kills and have enough just efforts in general to accumulate 3 in the entirety of that, which is just insane. But I mean, considering what else we're seeing. But I mean, even then, I mean, it's 9, so I mean, you're 3 short, but I mean, there's a very easy 3 orbs to pick up over the course of 12 rounds. But knowing what everybody else was doing, I mean, even then, Converse, I mean, they just were not contesting those. They were just giving way too much space here to UGA in terms of just kind of dying and giving them the space that was priorly held by that defense. So this is what we're expecting, a bit of a turn up. We're expecting Converse to really kind of go on the aggression, really just kind of completely forget about that last half, put it behind them, and start to be the fragging unit that we're expecting them to see, especially with a composition like this. It's not something we're going to talk about. It's not a kind of team composition or an ideology we want to just mention and just start to describe. It's something they're playing for. It's something they picked. And, well, they got to break the mold right here, right now, and show that it was working.
FaZe makes a fallback plan using the paranoia to try to create some space, making a lot of noise the Converse is making in through A main. And while you step in through arches, they actually managed to find a nice frag. And for a moment, it almost was FaZe initially for the initial shots out through the classic, but cleaned up instead by Zach. Avian now off the board. Chances going to both sides, and UGA's defense is faltering. Aki's got 2 HP. A shock dart would finish them, and oh my goodness, they step out of that one. Neo from the Matrix just barely egging off the other way, but it will not go their way as Geo will step up with the Ghost for the final frag of this round and maybe start to showcase what this ISO and Yoru combo on offense can piece together.
Well, first thing they got to do is actually win a second round because they didn't manage to do that in the first half. We saw UGA turn things around, not only found themselves around after the fact, but even then, better yet, double down and get themselves a 2-1 start. But obviously, as you say, giving that first round over initially. So, I mean, we get to see Converse really just drive this thing home. I mean, obviously, this game could be in a completely different swing if they just weren't shut down by sides so early. But as it stands right now, they understand this player's a pain in their side, no pun intended. They got to find a way to just really clock this guy out. And thankfully, on the attacking side of the map, you also have the opportunity and the luxury of being able to understand where this man defaults himself to and say, let's just not go there. Problem is, if you don't do that, Zach's going to be somewhere else. So your problems are going to follow you, and they're going to take shape as a different form depending on where you are. But no matter what, there is 3 lanes. There is 3 ways to get in and around the map to really cross that threshold. But are you actually going to take that third one? It seems like Converse really wants to.
all the way up through bottom mid. Converse with so much potential, but it's unactualized efforts. No frag has gone their way. No information has been given. And well, they finally have given an audio cue as to where they are. That just gives UGA a much better shot at being able to slow this down or at least stall it for the time being. Avian and Geo, who worked their way up through bottom mid, now have Avian relocating out and keeping Geo there. A lot in what we see similar to the map of Haven when a team works down through A-Long, puts their player in space
30 seconds
and falls
left.
back away. The Converse don't like what they were seeing to A. They want this B side, and they're going to send 3 players through market to try and contend with it. Arctic will wait for the initial play. The smoke goes out. Flashes also joining alongside Avian's kit. Side, though, with the Sheriff. Shocking the world. Maybe one more, but not going to happen. UGA's defense holds strong. Zach with a Sheriff.
10 seconds
2
left.
to their name. Maybe more. Potentially on the ride as Icy's waiting things out. Shot, only a single left in this gun. A reload would be required, but they know a single hit would take a player down, and that's a sacrifice they're probably willing to take at this stage. You have your KO wrapping through. Maybe the chance catches the flank onto Arctic, and now Icy's alone. Headhunter in hand, Outlaw must be reloaded, but the time is just not there to do so. The limitation of the weapon in front of you must be traded for a Guardian, and Zach can just start to stick this defuse because your team has your back, and Georgia will not let Converse get 2 rounds in a row.
The second time now we've seen this disrupt go off, and I mean, it was at the hands once again of Zach inside. But it wasn't even a matter of them being defaulted and then the team understanding that, hey, we should split these guys up across the map. We should put them in different areas. Zach was ready for the rotation, needed to be there, had all that utility, needed to play within the proximity of the turret, of the alarm bot, letting the team know where this team could possibly be. So you never deviate from the middle of the map. But whenever you get an idea of where they could be, if you know it's up the middle, they're more than likely going B, where, what do you know? That's at 50-50 a loss out of Converse's side. You go right over to the side once more. That Jet is just going to be there to kill you. And guess what? Now, instead of avoiding your problems or setting yourself into a pacing of having to deal with them one by one, you say, we'll take them all on simultaneously. And let me tell you something. Demons are already heavy hitters. When you got 2 on both of your shoulders, that's a big problem you can't get on top of.
Aki will open up a first blood for
One
this round.
enemy
And they're making
remaining.
falls. Zach has
Spike
gone
down
in
mid.
unnoticed and sends 4 into the afterlife. Yeah, there's demons. Their name is Zach. This is a monster on the playing field for Georgia. And that's 24 kills to their name. And it feels like we've already seen way too much in just 3 simple rounds from Georgia in the second half to just scream out to everybody watching. Yeah, Converse's entire offensive strategy starts to falter when UGA have a hero who can backpack their team. And it's not just one that's there for Georgia Dallas. Its name is Zach. Its name is Side. And it feels like at any moment, Tense, Aki, and Baze can be breakout players.
I just want to see Converse just kind of step it up a little bit, or better yet, have UGA just swap their composition. Just because, come on, man, for the win rate, oh, for everybody watching, for everybody out there looking at the stats, just say, hey, let's not do this composition every time. Because it's not even really the composition, I feel like, that's giving them everything to play with. It's giving them the leniency of this game. It is more so just the absolute place with these crosshairs where you can put these guys on Deadlock and Vise and Astra and it would still end up working just because they are just nailing their shots every day of the week. The one necessity exception I will say is going to be that Jet, but everything else is just negotiable. As it stands right now, though, finally getting onto site. Converse get the spike plan off. The problem is, keep giving your KJ an absolute camp for the kill. So, I mean, what's there to work with? That's shot down. That's going to go ahead and flush the rest of the players out. And even then, put you in a scenario where Zach has a Guardian hand, has a couple players lit up, and says, well, this should just be the prettiest thing I've ever seen. But there's still a chance.
Connecting, didn't know platform to be off to wine. Tense now alone. Well, they do assume there's still one more player here. You'll have to assume it's Arctic off to A-May inside. That will be the case. Converse, it was very dirty half up to this point, but they will still make this a 2-2 split in regards once round 13 got underway. The UGA were not able to perform, even with that lockdown on the board, really up to what could have been, it feels like. You said you could see the future a little bit. If you could see the different realities converging in front of you, Doctor Strange style, maybe you would have seen the UGA extend a little bit quicker out off the back of that lockdown usage, break that door sooner, tap that spike sooner, and force them to come to you, at least get that to half. to force them to come to you first and let them kind of dictate the pacing. That's just not the case. Converse find a site quite nice, and it looks like they were looking to prove it once again. They send a great recon bolt over the top, forcing the Raptors players to fall back. And now we're sending the ultimate in. No one's there. Gio's proven it. And now you'll see UGA go, yeah, that's a false smoke. We're into sight, and we've got players up on Raptors holding strong.
Yeah, just look at them just really nail these shots where they can. I mean, side already opening things up. I mean, 10's able to go on the edge. Gonna go ahead and one more side, come out with 2, 3, 4. Just keep on counting, buddy. The number's gonna go up. I mean, that's inevitable. Whether it's Zach, whether it's side, say 3 or 4, probably once a round. And the majority of these rounds, you won't look stupid. You can just say the rest are a fluke. I mean, it's just insane what these two have been accomplishing, what they've been doing, and better yet, what they have been holding. It has been a war of attrition, but it's been more so like just a historical lesson, letting you know that whatever land UGA wants, they will take it.
And now we're seeing why your duelist selection is so important. Converse have been running into Zach the entire game, and it's not just Sentinel utility as a whole, but just dealing with the player, giving them the confidence, and now having the defensive side go, well, predominantly now in UGA's favor in this 3-2 split. You can't give them any leeway, any sort of garnish on their meal, and unfortunately, you've cooked them up a Gordon Ramsay-style dinner. You are a delightful treat in front of them, and Georgia does not seem like a team that's hard-pressed to try to get that fruit on their plate and start to eat up. As they'll have a full 5 ready for this retake. Maybe a wraparound could be a brewing now for Arctic. Uppin's holding close to this corner, and Zach wants a chance, but will not be given it. Gio and Puffin finding their frags. Tense will take Puffin away from that side corner, but Icy's now retaking that space, and Tense from Raptors makes them punished. Now it's only 2 remaining. Adrian from down in hell, no chance they're doing anything with a shotgun there. And though Arctic does find a frag or 2, Baze is still standing, and they will make sure Converse are brought to their knees and sent to a map 2 lickety split.
Defenders
it's
win.
So unfortunate to see the results of this map. I mean, consider what we saw and what we were expecting out of these teams. I mean, it's funny enough, though, also seeing kind of the history. We got the 13-3 of one team last week for number 1. We got the 13-4 of another team for the map number 1 and the success last week. And here we have a 13-5 of all things. Just, I mentioned earlier, counting 3 or 4, it felt like it was inevitable in any of those rounds for either one of those players. But here, barely going above and beyond by 1. It just here for a series like this is just surprising to say the least, considering what we were expecting out of these two teams. And obviously, Converse, this map was not their pick. They probably like these specialist maps. They probably like kind of going to these weird kind of corners of the map selection, just kind of taking advantage of that, because even then, they're the ones choosing split this early into the rotation, saying that it's what we want to do. It's something different. It's something that we're not used to seeing all season long. And maybe something they've been investing their time on, knowing that the Swiss stage would be a little bit more easier on them, looking at their matchups and looking at their stage and what they were going to have to go up against. So, I mean, that could be a great idea from them. But problem is, the great ideas that were also inside this game didn't pan out for execution, because it wasn't just a matter, as I said earlier, of the utility itself. The shots were not there. And as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter what agents you play. Seeing UGA frag out to that degree, seeing Side, seeing Zach and what they were accomplishing, that's just something you can't emulate. It's something you just got to get ready for. And it's just a plain, simple case of just, you got to get better.
Yeah, a lot of the times we'll make the reference saying you don't like to say, and it's not often you get to say that agent selection is what won the game. So before the match even got started, but I don't even know if that's applicable for this series, because even if you use the same agent selection, as long as Zach and was not in the game, right? Zach and I were not in the game. He very well could have beat any other team here in the SEL. It's just that difference maker. It's just those players, those key players that needed to be dealt with. And unfortunately, they just were yapping the back of your ear, and they were just that little noise you could never get rid of, and you're going a little crazy. The padded rooms, it just has to be fixed. Adjusting on over to the map, a split a lot wider, very different play style, it feels like. But then if you manage to survive it, you still got to deal with Sunset. That's kind of like you said, the mixture of all of these combined feels like an amalgamation of sorts, and that's where the problem's really going to be if you still let every other player start to lock in for Georgia, not just Zach, not just Side. But until then, a break is required, so don't go anywhere. How will map 2 fare? Can Georgia send us out 2-0? Will we see a good comeback from Converse? We'll see a third map on the horizon. After a 13-5 on the map of Ascent in favor for Georgia, Converse has been handed an L that they have to get rid of and hand back to Georgia at the end of this second map on Split. Can they do it? Time will tell, but the change in variation for their agent selection did them no favors, and they're going to have to hope they can cinch those problems in as we step on over to the limelight of our Split diversified life and the map of Split.
Yeah, definitely a map that we haven't seen in a long while here inside the SL,
Almost
or better
thankfully.
yet, anywhere. But I mean, seeing even in last week, it was a possibility of map number 3. So I mean, there was a chance, it was lingering there, but we just never got around to actually looking at it. But as it goes right here, right now, I mean, this is just really how the game goes. It's a kind of do or die scenario here for, well, Converse. I mean, especially considering what they've done for the entirety of the season, what they've accomplished. I mean, how good they've just looked overall. This pick of theirs, I mentioned it, the specialty picks, seeing what they do and seeing how they want to play the game, maybe just kind of getting the idea of how things start to work. It's not going to do much if you're in a scenario where these guys are just out here fragging. So, I mean, this map, it doesn't matter what the environment is. I think that's the best way you can really do it, where you're used to swinging and, flicking your wrist side to side. Go ahead and make him flip up and down. See if that adds a bit of variance into the equation that makes him at least miss a couple shots, because that's all you need to really turn the game around. But as it stands right here, I mean, we got to see whether or not that actually really happens. Because, I mean, there's so much at hand here for UGA, just seeing what they've done, seeing how much of an absolute dominance that last map was. That, I mean, I don't know if we'll really see that momentum carry over, just because you looked at the round number 1 for both halves and seeing how we saw Converse win them, then it just didn't go well for them afterwards. I mean, we got to see whether or not we can just see them just do their thing, just absolutely nuke them out. But if we don't see much of an actual agent selection that plays into it, as I mentioned, agent selections may not matter in that last map. Here on Split, though, they become an absolute nightmare if they don't line up right.
If you have any mismatch, it feels like it's going to be disastrous for this map. And we do see that CVU are not really opting to go for the double duelist we saw previously. Instead, it's actually going to be the opposing in Georgia that wants to go for its side. Enjoy it while you can. Neon on the board. Isco, who was traded in. That was Aki, who was initially playing. That was a player they had to bring in last moment. Isco wasn't available, was MIA. Isco's back in, and conceivably could be one of their best players, and they're giving them one of the most important roles, it feels like, for a team filling into this system. As Zach's back over to that Cypher, tenses off of the KO now onto that Sky, and then Baze doing Baze things, as you would expect for this map. That Omen, which I was going to mention before I looked over at CVU, is kind of tradable with that Astra if that player can lead and, evolve that parallel level of play with the roster. That's on the board. See if you want to bring it. And I think Gio's a good enough player to do so. They weren't getting the frags, but I'm sure as heck they can lead this team with that utility to try to evolve, whether it be their attack or their defensive retakes.
Yeah, it's just a lot of mental strain, though, if you ask me. I mean, consider what we saw in that last map. So you're not really even holding your own, or at least trading out enough to be neutral. And now you're tacking on the added responsibility of being an Astra and holding every player's hand. That is just a lot to ask. But, I mean, still, lots of game to go. Map hasn't started yet. They got a little P break in, so maybe things are totally different. Maybe they just had to tinkle the entire time. Who knows? But as it stands already, I want to be looking at more so the Clove coming into play. That's a bit of a different pick, but also has that same kind of versatility as what we see at the likes of our Brimstone, but even then still has more of a duelist capability, being able to frag through the middle of the map if necessary and kind of get that weekend to really get those plays out. But I mean, even then more so, I'd look at right over to UGA again. I mean, with the Sky, with the Neon. I mean, running a double duelist. I mean, we've seen Rainus be introduced in this map every here and there. We haven't seen the Neon come to play yet because Neon hasn't been around, and or especially buffed to the same degree as we know as to this day. But Split was even in the rotation. So maybe this could be just a kind of a dream pick that we haven't really even seen have the chance to be highlighted.
I keep in mind the old heyday of Split, right, where Sage was queen, right? That was the go-to sentinel choice. The Ice Wall dominated. He was taken out of the map, and gameplay changed. She did not come back in when the map came back into the pool. I think that's what they're trying to showcase with Neon as a duelist, but it's just not really a first-round thing. You're hoping for a couple more frags for UGA's defense. Side can't collect the shots, though, enough to get Icy off that board. A spike will go down for Converse. No real way to deny this. Zach is hoping this outer hall could be a chance, but maybe needing to set up a tertiary angle FaZe is just not doing so. FaZe wants to take the exact same alleyway approach. There goes the paranoia, hoping to get Arctic sightlines away. Not going to matter. AB's in the corner, and you're letting Zach feed the beast, putting down the cage, hoping for more, getting wrapped back away. Sees one in garage, can't connect the shots. You're running out of time. Arctic won't even be the problem. It's Icy rushing back in, and UGA so close with Zach still not able to do it. And Converse will continue their streak of first-round wins as they did so in that very first map.
Now, will they continue the spree, though, of also losing the second and everything following? So that's the big question that we have still up in the air. And obviously, you can't really blame Side or Zach for opting in for those sheriffs that are around like this. Biggest thing I want to be looking at is Zach. I mean, I clenched immediately when I saw that first blood and just thinking mentally, oh, here we go again. But didn't end up winning the round. I mean, you got to keep them all in play, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let them win the first. See what happens next. At least make it look close and make it look like we're trying out here. But, I mean, everything's following at this point. I mean, knowing those sheriffs know what they're capable of. And even then, maybe Base sneaking into this start round. There it is! Not one, but two. Both barrels. The only two you got. Getting every single bit of damage off.
Yeah, if you're talking about people participating, both barrels for Base are participating, and UGA are now riding off that high, essentially, of their success down through mid, and need to start to realize, yeah, our weapons aren't very strong. We kind of need to force Converse out of mid to maybe give us the chance to pick up those guns, and if we can't, at the very least, we'll wrap back around a little bit later and stay alive and not sacrifice too much control in that direction, as they will fall back, and we're back over towards Garage, hoping that Geo's claim it control this way could give Isco a bit of a fright on sight. And you have those two players lacking half off towards Ropes, who, once they get the information, the audio cue that players are inside a garage, they'll step out from Ropes, grab those weapons more likely than not, and then decide they need to help as soon as possible on this site. As Isco Stinger does get one. Refragging Tense has lost a life, but now FaZe goes off the board, and Isco has to get dangerous and gets there to comeuppance for it. Puffin, you were bottom fragging for your team last map, and now you're facing the single best player, it feels like, on the entirety of UGA's roster. Zach will not lose this fight if you look the wrong way, and Zach sneaks in just at the wrong time. It's Valorant timing at its finest, baby. 1-1, UGA keep up the hot streak.
I mean, even lining up inside that fight, I give you about a 30% chance of success. You look in the opposite direction, congratulations. Oh, that just disappeared like a magic act. But, I mean, seeing what's going on so far, I mean, the chances of winning this game are 0. We're going to see Converse go ahead and probably get themselves a couple more rounds, have something to work with. But, man, it's the way they do the start of these games is so detrimental. Quite frankly, next half, you win the pistol, don't even buy the next one. It's not worth it. There's money to be spent rather than wasted, and you can't let it go to waste, especially as a freebie handed over to UGA Black over and over and over again. As you see right here, force their hand. Make them buy those guns themselves. That Guardian is an extra 2,500 they're working with in their own pocket. But even then, one thing they're working with right now is a nice little bit of numbers to be going with. They were able to manage to shut down one player to build a map. They can now do what they can. But
I know exactly where
we're not quite sure, because being in a 2v2 scenario, we look at Converse, what they've accomplished. They haven't really had the best luck in terms of kills just in general in this game, but still, it looks like they're on borderline thrifty territory right now.
Arctic has that Guardian inside, really wants to try to force them back. There goes the reload, hoping for more, though it won't matter. Puffin's wrapped through the garage and Cat's side off guard. One neon nerf will matter if you're dead before it even hits the patch. Zach is still now the last one standing. Hey, I've seen this one before. I don't see that spike down. And there is no garage play being held by Zach. No, it's Heaven and looking to send Puffin there just the same. But you're making that little bit of a step. You're hesitating. Do you go all the way in through defender spawn, or you wrap up to Heaven? Puffin making a decision
30
here.
30 seconds left.
Do they have the time to rotate off to A? That would be a rough mistake to make at this point in time. And since they haven't dropped down in through there, I'd assume they want to go through alley. They'll have to make that decision soon. And with no intel, with 15 seconds left, Zach, your gut has to be screaming to you, this is going to be a B-sided take. This is going to be a plant on this objective. I need to start to rotate in from defender's spawn and start to try to get Puffin off guard. As they'll plant in Cubby right below upper side Heaven. Zach maybe hoping for something This could be a good chance for Puffin to pull out the camera once they sit over here inside box in corner. The shot goes, though, gives Puffin the intel that they're in fact worming from Alley. Zach can see the head, wants to hit the shots, and will never miss that 1v1. Already, it's Zach leading this team, Dallas.
Clutch.
Right back to where he belongs, at the top. I mean, Isco, give that assist back. I mean, that position is not yours. It is being gunned for by the one and only. I mean, we have seen it already taken over and over and over again, and just held as soon as he finds that positioning. But even then, better yet, you consider the cipher, you consider the free utility there of the information once more. I mean, we are seeing Zach just pull up inside this game. And if there was any day to lock in, I mean, this is the one. You're making one of the best teams in the nation look like just anybody else on a Swiss stage, which is just insane to think of when we're talking about Converse. It's just insanity. I mean, these guys of UGA, I mean, you look at their roster, you look at what they were dealing with. Converse had a coach. UGA says, we don't need one if we never call timeouts. That's momentum we're losing.
That's just slowing us down and our intent towards Cider and our intent to defend sites. Why would we hold back where not necessary? But Converse are looking like a good shot for a 2-2 split in our scoreline. The UGA having lost so many of their weapons in that last round and it coming down to that 1v1 again. Converse will just be able to say, well, bring what we can for round 4. Won't be too big of a problem. We paid the price in round 2 and 3. Let's start getting these early frags to start to punish. Avian wants that space. Somehow still gets that kill, but Isco just sprays. And Isco just gets everything. Yeah, we're saying Zach wants that top of the leaderboard, but Isco says, I didn't get to participate map 1. Let me eat. And the team is chefing him up, and the team is tearing apart Converse, leaving only Gio, who has gotten 1, but needs 3 in total to make this round secured for Converse.
Realistically, I mean, this could be
30 seconds left
already, just kind of in terms of how this is played. But when we see Gio being the last one alive, it's there when you consider who you were up against. I mean, there is so much dish out to you previously. Looking just kind of get the job done, looking just maybe kind of player. But I mean, Gio in that 1v2, looking at an opting to swing in instead of just work around, force him out, do something else.
Using my vision to your advantage.
Take the bull right by the horns, and next thing you know, you just got it. I mean, it's just not the best thing to be doing there in that kind of situation, and it's unfortunate that, I mean, your team's handing you that kind of scenario, but it's just really how the cookie crumbles, and it's really what you're dished out. And I mean, props once again to Isco for making that round so easy. We didn't have to rely on Zach for absolutely everything, but even then, more so speaking of Zach, speaking to Isco, holding that top of the line, holding that top spot, it's like your best working horse. Putting him on a treadmill, putting a carrot in front of him saying, you're going to power my entire house. Isco is that carrot. And I think, quite frankly, we got too good of a horse on our hands out of Zach to really go ahead and just let that thing be hanging too long. You know he's gunning for that, and you know there will be a point, but I don't know if this horse starts working after the point. I think he keeps on rolling, keeps on going. But even then, Baze wants to have a feed inside of the action as well. Already opening things up, finding the first blood. Zach can swing out, finding the wall on top of it. It doesn't even matter what gun you got. Find the close range with the judge. You're the one getting judged. And already, it's a 1v3, man. It's just, come on.
It's just Georgia, it feels like right now. They are dastardly when it comes to every bit of aggression they can play, and just knowing that they're in control. That's a headshot, by the way, with a knife. Good one there, Tince. You know, the aim is really, absolute when the knife does. Also, it's your only kill. Just leave it at that for the remainder of this game. And if you still come out on the win, that'd be even more ridiculous to say. And you're doing that in that round, Dallas, where Side is just sprinting in there with an ult and just sending it. Like, half of this round was just haphazard from UGA. They knew they had the advantage. They knew it was going to be an eco. They knew what Converse was going to bring to the table. And even when, you have someone like Gio getting some good frags, you see you have Avian and getting a nice headshot with the Sheriff, none of that matters. UGA never feel like they've lost control. And with rifles now in Converse's hands, you have to not only change the pacing of the round to come in your favor, you need to make the mental in your favor. And I just have to feel like after losing so majorly in map 1, having a start like this could be a bigger problem than it seems off the top shelf. It's a 3 versus 3, but there's the info you're looking for, and that resurrection, I think, is necessity coming out from Avian. Avian may not be able to get away safely. The ult meant nothing, because Tince and Zach just slaughter you like lambs in the field of that A site.
Pack up your things, people. No, not to go home, not to be done. No, we're not done here. I think Converse should just kind of definitely not unload their luggage anywhere because they're not looking comfortable anywhere on this map just yet. I mean, it just seems like they just can't really get a hold of where they need to go, what they need to do. They've had the most success in the middle of the map, but even then, once they actually ever set foot on a site, that's where you're going, man, yeah, that's going to be the death of them. Setting up on a site, it's at the point where it's like, the worst part of a round for them, the worst thing they can do is put down the spike. They're on the attacking side! What else am I to do?
Well, maybe you don't walk directly into the sight lines. A single smoke can only cover so much range, it seems. And I just feel like the Astra on Converse somehow isn't doing nearly enough to keep those sight lines away from UGA's favor. They're willing to take these extensions, they're willing to take these fights, and they're going to win nearly every single one. Zach's got 2 in the round. Base joins in for 2 of their own. It's just contest after contest after contest. And to be frank, there's no contest for Converse when they try to extend into that space because Icy can only do so much, and Icy unfortunately can't do it all if they're still floating in the air when the shots are hitting them and pegging them into the afterlife.
Hey, Patrick, what's better than a 6-2? 6-1. It's just one of those things where it's so close. It feels like these teams are really just nailing this thing down. But I mean, UGA has Converse's number. I mean, they are just getting this thing unlocked, and Converse are forced to not whip out. I mean, they had to break out the timeout at the same spot right when UGA hits that 6-round threshold, guaranteeing themselves an even half. But when you come into a round like this with even less points than last time, on your own map pick, better yet, what kind of precedent does that set? What kind of toll does that take for this team? And I mean, I just have to be inside that call and understand what exactly is going through their minds. What are they trying to bring together? And this wasn't a player call. This was a coach call saying, guys, rope it in for a little bit. We really got to just kind of wake up, find at least 2 more rounds. But keep in mind, during that last map, that's all they surmounted, and it was still a very quick closure because while they got the pistol, it seems like everything afterwards is just doomed.
Doomed or not, you have to start figuring out what the hell is going wrong. Converse is a team that can place nearly anybody. I mean, they are top 30 in the country. You could argue for top 16 in the country if you really wanted to. And a lot of their difficulties in CVAL and in these upper programs are, you know, the region that they're within and some of the teams that they have to face off against in those regions they're placed within. They can take down nearly anybody. And right now, UGA is just proving that they are a speed bump that's maybe raised a bit too high. They poured a lot more concrete than expected on this bump because it is a full halt and stop, whether it be on offense or defense. And offensively, that cannot be allowed to continue, especially when you've been getting over half of the first bloods on this map already, and the scoreline is sitting 6-1 the other way.
Just looking for something here. Slow and steady. Player down on UGA side, so one of the better circumstances we've seen at the Converse so far. A great setup. Just got to execute it onto a site. But where are they? They're going towards B. You already have players. The side is still here, looking ready to try to rumble.
Down.
Still.
One enemy remaining.
Seek them out.
30 seconds left.
Drop in a smoke.
Avian now alone. So much has happened, and so much has befelled before you, and will you be the last? Or will you stay up and stay triumphant? Down into the corner, Tense makes the drop. It's the IDQ 100% there. Avian, maybe hoping for more. That was a drop, trying to be obfuscated with a gunshot, but Avian's not fooled. 4 kills, wanting more, and Tense shuts you down. Avian wanted to be the king for Converse and gets decrowned, dethroned, and thrown out the window to once again see UGA defuse on this B site. My bad. Sorry, guys. My bad.
I'm out of here. Gotta go. Right here. Here! Catch! Catch alone. Back like I never left!
I know exactly where you are.
Get him. You are divided!
Spike planted.
Here comes the party!
Last player standing.
Flash out.
Flashpoint Arctic had a straight shot to Zach, but touches the A key, strafes too far to the side, lets the accuracy become inaccuracy, and it sends UGA even further forward. This round, you can't really even blame on a single player for the side of UGA. Converse just got beat. The round prior, Side somehow strips away 3 life pools off of Converse and would have made that round so much easier for them. I don't know if I would ever see somebody who'd advocate more for a Neon nerf than our social media manager. It's the entirety of Converse's roster now, Dallas. Unreal. And Side hasn't even been the best player on this map. They were up there with Zach previously, but you've added another beast into the mosh pit of this UGA team with Isco stepping forward, Zach still hitting hot and heavy, and Baze and Side, like I said, just moments
Camera
away
taken
from being
out.
up there with the rest of those dogs, and they bite
Scout
ferociously at the neck, fiending for this Converse blood. And they've been getting it 8-1 this half already, demonstrably in favor for UGA.
One down. Grenade!
Where is
Battle out.
everyone hiding?
One enemy remaining.
Remember, bullets hurt. I'm out of here.
Nine rounds in a row is just...
Wrong buddy out.
There's a billion words in the English language, and I'm trying to think of the nicest way to phrase this for Converse, but I think niceties are out of the way. I don't think they're in the equation anymore. Georgia's been mean enough. Converse need to start thinking further the second half. You would like to say, hey, maybe think to this third map, but there will be no third map with the way UGA are playing. CV are trying to maybe brew something up towards the B side, work in a garage. They don't really like the option. They'll rotate here through mid, try to fight for this control. Not only do they find 2 here, they almost got away scot-free, and Zach was able to quickly strip a single one back and make that double loss. Now only a single, and just a simple band-aid could fix that. Another frag the other way if it wasn't for the fact that Puffin strikes the throat of Zach and cuts off the tower, but Tins gets the shots off before the cage goes forward and maybe sets up a chance. Rolling Thunder, this is a huge expenditure for the ult, but Converse
30
need the
seconds
round.
left.
They've got an advantage stepping into a possible post plant. They need to do everything
player
possible to
standing.
maintain that as Geo wraps back through defender spawn and wraps the head off of Isco too. Finally, Converse stopped Georgia. 9 rounds in a row.
Last
Yeah,
round
shame on
before
you.
the switch.
10, shame on me. We're not letting it happen.
Gotta go. Bomb buddy out.
Wow, my eyes.
Here comes the party!
I know exactly where you are.
I'm out of here.
Side's gonna have to get healed with the
Spike
regrowth
planted.
coming out from Tins. Shots from Puffin, not gonna matter. Taken down by the better doppelganger of Zach. The side wraps in through the defender's spawn, maybe to go through tower. No, they're gonna go for the ult. They want to send it off into screens. Maybe a chance for one to refrag off the light from Zach. Geo off the board. Fast lane forward, sliding in. Side trying to prove that Neon still got that chance, that X factor while they still can. 2 more patches to go until
Last
then.
player
Side though
standing.
can't keep the headshots in with Palpatine, leaving Tins all alone, and they won't be alone for too much longer. The rest of the team will let them know, yeah, this half, we got what we could have gotten
Switching
out
sides.
of it. Converse only gets 3. We'll see what we can do the second half to close out the 3 necessary to win it out.
Time to hunt. Scout destroyed. I got the spike. Bye-bye. Go, go, go!
The fight down mid, they wanted to get that control over the Rapku garage
Last
and
player
catch
standing.
everyone inside of B's sight, lacking. There will be no problem for UGA. Not only have they been flawless to this point, they've left only a single player for Converse alive, and who wants but Puffin to be the last player alive? They were all of the first 4 rounds of that first half, and they will be the start as well for this second half. But there is no Converse patented first round win. It's Georgia taking it. And Georgia, don't you know what happens when a team in the SCL wins the first round? You lose 9 in a row right back. Converse
Oh, you're throwing.
might have just been handed the chance back into this lobby. Though, to be fair, jokes aside, this is one of those maps that is very dominated on one side over the other. The question will be, was that side the defense, or did UGA just make it look easy?
Yeah, I mean, this map is literally an uphill battle. But, I mean, looking at it, it really comes down to the point of whether or not is Neon Spring going to be fast enough to kind of trek up that mountain fast enough? Are we going to see UGA Black able to actually utilize this weapon advantage and get themselves the lead they want? Well, when you got Puff pushing up like that, it'll definitely make things seem pretty darn easy,
Coming over here.
considering that you're going to be giving them a numbers advantage off rip. With 2
Last
players
player
remaining
standing.
inside, just being an absolute pain, running around. Dude, please, come on. And just kind of everybody else just pressing that W key after you know the numbers have already been given over to UGA. I mean, everything else in that round is just kind of not even a toss-up, just more of a handover.
It's Call of Duty cool tooltip down there. Switching to your knife is always faster than reloading, it seems like. But unfortunately, you're still going to take 3 steps forward to even get an impact off of that one. Good vision, though, to try to see that actualized. UGA getting those first 2 pistol round wins has guaranteed them not only that double digits, but up to 11. They just need 2 mistakes in rounds from Converse in this half. This would have been very manageable with the way that this map pans out to be so dominantly in favor of one side or the other. This would have been very doable for Converse. But losing that pistol makes matters worse. And getting the pistol in the first
There
half
you go.
and losing the bonus
Goodbye,
makes it
destroyed.
even more
Cage
problematic. Puffin, though, has always been there for Converse. Sent maybe a little lackluster, but they've proven themselves capable here on Split. They just need the team to try to help them out, and they get one more, but there's nothing there for Avian. Intense is just all over the place. Planting down the spike now. Map control claimed from Baze. Icy tries to extend through the Descender spawn. Gets cut off on that Cubby by screens. Geo up in tower. Maybe you try to pivot down to site a little bit more, but shots are just unfurling up to tower. UGA know you have to come from either there or to wrap elsewhere. And with the time and the state of which it's been in, you don't really have the time nor space to rotate. You gotta step out from heaven. You gotta step out from tower. And that's why Isco's got your crossfire, and Isco's got the assistance from base.
I mean, even at that point, I mean, you already had the player extending. You had Arctic. You could just see the paranoia setting in, just firing those flashes back towards spawn, hoping nobody's really pushing you and wrapping you. But keep in mind, I mean, UGA already drew that line in the sand. They said, we're not going to be pushing these guys. We don't have to. These guns aren't even, the guns we're playing with right now aren't even ours. They were donated graciously by the other team. So at that point, we could die with them. First and the next, who cares? It's about hitting that map point, that match point, locking this thing down, and telling everybody else a pretty quick night. I mean, that's really all it dwindles down to, because we keep in mind in a situation like this, you got the two neural thefts ready on both sides. So we talk about these first bloods, we talk about these mid fights that went in Converse's direction so many times, but just completely unraveled as they pushed through and wanted to find a site. God forbid, to be on the attack. They want to do that, but who knows how it looks when they line up towards the middle, when they're on the attacking side, because Converse doesn't want to meet their challenge. They don't want to meet them there, even though they were able to win those fights so efficiently during that first half. Here, they don't want an idea. They don't even want an inkling of what could be a scuffle, for all we care, to go ahead and get things rolling here. So with the two smokes already coming out, that's a little bit of a cue. It seems like Arctic has an idea to maybe go ahead and get on the rotate. It seems like a bit of a call's coming in, and audible maybe to say, go ahead, hold back, don't dedicate yourself to shit, because, well, you get a Trailblazer coming up for these mail stairs. You don't want to dedicate anything to shit. Just need to hold our stations, hopefully win some rounds, hopefully, better yet, even get there, we got to find some kills first.
Geo inside garage. This can actually be conceivably the first fight, as UGA are holding back when it comes to their mid control. Here it is. Base. Just knowing a player would be in that space. And Geo was there in round 13. They were there in round 14, and they're going to be there in round 16, it seems like. And that's just the complacency, I feel like, from Converse. Whether it was on the attack or on the defense, I didn't feel like they had very many diversified options. That's a problem to sit within it. Neural theft in, popping once more. Can't get it. Icy with a judge. Able to get seconds, but now being pressured, and the classic just isn't nearly good enough. And time is quickly running out. Tense will have the time to get the spike down, and no one's going to be close enough to shut it. But Alien's being followed, and the demons are out. The horns are ripped forward, and the UJ have gotten the 13th round needed to send Converse out of not just this map, but this series and the league as a whole for this semester. It's SCL, and this season, it looks like our finals are already guaranteed to see Georgia amongst it.
I feel bad. I mean, realistically, I do. Converse is such an outstanding team. You go through, look at any week besides this week, obviously, to see what they've accomplished. Well, I mean, just how they decimate every single team. And obviously, the first time we saw them was during, I believe, it was like either week 1 or play-ins that we finally get to see Converse, that we showcased them for the first time on stream. And they made an absolute joke of whoever they were facing. But it's one of those situations where that's going to be prone to happen. Next time we see them, it's almost like the revenge of the broadcast. I mean, they just they get handed that same exact dish. But the problem is, I mean, you go through the entire season, what they've done. It's insane to think that literally we have seen all the other teams that Georgia have faced find more rounds on Georgia than Converse, of all people. It's insane to think of that. It just doesn't do this team the justice that they have just managed to accumulate through the course of the season. They've been disgusting. They've just been absolutely just making a run of this thing. But knowing that even then, after shutting down Oklahoma, even then showing the same kind of competition we've seen out of Auburn and doing that to them as well, all these teams who not only had themselves good looks and good fights in the LCQ, but during those first 2 stages as well, just to see it come to that is, I mean, obviously disappointing for them. But holy hell if Georgia didn't turn up for it. I mean, just everything earned on their end. Yeah. You can't hand the blame to Converse. You just got to give nothing but good graces and congratulations for what Georgia did there.
Yeah, it is Georgia's day to lap in victory for sure. They were beyond impressive. The scope at which they were able to perform today is just unreal. And if they can do that coming up against GMU, right? I
I mean,
think
they're
they could
done.
take it.
GMU's
But
cooked. Plain
that's the
and
thing
simple.
though. We've got this element type right now in the top 3 for SEL this season. It was Converse, GMU, and Georgia. And Georgia very much so can beat Converse. We've now proven that. But Converse can beat GMU, and I still believe that GMU can beat Georgia. Not if they play like they did today, but they're the number 1 team for a reason. They can beat Georgia and have been proven to be able to do that against the opponents they've been facing and who they have faced to this state with history. But Converse was just poorly matched against Georgia today. And GMU are maybe in a dangerous spot with Clemson. I don't know the scoreline for that game that's going on right now, but if that turns any
They're
other
probably
direction,
barely done with map 1. They probably
yeah,
just started
it
map
was
2.
so fast for this series. I'm going to pull it up. Everyone, entertain
I'm
yourselves.
with
Twitter
you.
your
I mean, I was
thumbs.
already kind of looking it up. I mean, here we are. Still, not even the first game's reported yet.
It's not even
We're not
reported
even
yet.
match number 1 done. So I mean,
Yeah, do we
it's
blame the players for not reporting it, or we blame the fact that this game just went by so fast? The series went by so fast.
Probably both. Game 1's probably done, but
yeah,
it's just, dude.
Unfortunate. It is this round is just an enigma. It feels like for the SEL, and it always feels like we have
Watch
these teams that
Clemson
are
win.
favored.
Oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
If Clemson pull out, I'm gonna be amazed in that game.
I'd be ticked we didn't broadcast that one, but I mean, it is what it is. We had to see what Georgia was made of. I mean, and this was,
titanium.
We definitely saw that. Yeah. That
Vibranium. They got some Marvel magic in this. They made
this
some
is going
tough
on
elements.
there. But it's just a matter more so of just kind of seeing how, I mean, because keep in mind, I mean, obviously, all of you who, I mean, I don't know if we saw the entire bracket. I mean, we could even then go ahead and kind of pull it up once more, I bet, just because, I mean, this series is over with. I mean, we all saw what happened. It's just the matter of that's next week. That's finals. The team that goes to that, the team that wins that, guaranteed on land. And I mean, even then more so, I think obviously UGA would have a bit of a probably an upper hand when it comes around to at least our last thing. You're not sure if it's going to be a Huntsville or where it's going to be, but even then, still, just knowing this region, knowing what they're just accomplished, knowing what they can do. I mean, they are just ready to take this thing home, and they are just ready to play. And honestly, if we see any emulation of that, better yet, if we see these players in person performing these kinds of just absolute shots, these decimations, then I mean, nothing fills your battery quicker, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, there's doing this online, right, in a league in normal standard play, and then there's doing this in person. If Georgia are able to pull that off at land come next semester, which I think, knowing this Georgia team and seeing this Georgia team, I don't think there's any way they step into the next semester, Dallas, and don't have enough points to get into land, because it is a point-based system. Even if they don't get first, they would have to lose nearly every single game in the regular season to not get any points, to not make it into that season for the land. So I think Georgia, we can almost guarantee they're not 100% punch their way through, and they are a team that is electric. And if they do perform like that on land, there's no one keeping their name out of their mouth. That's a team that with your parents you invite in to watch the land on an opposing end. You go Clemson come in with their parents, and they're like, wow. They'd go like, man, I hope my little Timmy does not have to face off against that team right there, because that is a scary, scary, scary team. I don't know. Where has the Bulldogs been? Because this was not the same Georgia we've seen previously. This is a better Georgia. This is prime Georgia. This is 07 Tom Brady Georgia, right? This is unparalleled SEL glaze right now for it, right? But you watch this game right there and tell me it was not warranted.
Right. And even then, I mean, you got to think also about the maps that were presented and looking at the kind of matchups. I mean, we talked about the agent selections. In a sense, sure, it always plays a bit of an idea, but I mean, considering the kind of shots that were being made, I mean, it was your KJ and your Jet who is carrying essentially that entire map. There's really nothing for it. But even then, when you look at kind of what's happening here, when you see how that entire thing is playing out, there's just not much you can really do against those shots. I mean, it's just one of those weeks when you say that they were just better, and there's really nothing you can break it down to besides that. Obviously, the placement, a bit of lurks here and there, placed by UGA. The kind of like two circumstances where Converse was able to kind of slip through those cracks, but it wasn't as beautiful as kind of an absolute shutdown as what we were expecting. But just seeing that in 90% of fights, as soon as you would run into Zach, or as soon as you would run into Side, or even then during this second game when you run to Isco, It's just saying there's just these huge roadblocks that when we get there, what can we do? And you've already lost at least health. You've hemorrhaged players. You're setting them up for situations to say 3, 4, whatever it takes. It'll be done.
And we said in a sense that it felt like if you didn't have Zach, you didn't have Side, it was any other player in the league, it feels like, in those positions, in those roles, the Converse probably would have taken that. It just would have been a big enough difference to make that.
Right.
But Zach was there. Side was there. Turn that around the other way. You step into map 2. You didn't shut down Zach. Side was a little bit quieter, but that's not Side's fault. That's Side getting outshined by the new step-in, the player that was actually available for their map 2 of Isco, who performed nearly up to stuff at the same level as Zach was doing. And that honestly would be the biggest mental downer for me as an individual. Not only do they have Raid Boss level 1, Raid Boss level 2, but they've subbed in another Raid Boss. That's a third health meter that you have to look appear on the top of your screen. What Elden Ring game is this? I am in fear in my boots right now. This is what Georgia are trying to prove on a broadcast. And we say a lot of the times, teams are scary and can be scary to be on stream because you now have your history, what you can do, your strategies available to be VOD reviewed by any other team, and it can really prep a roster for something like the finals, which GMU is not a team to let a game go unVOD reviewed and unprepared for.
Right.
But Georgia was able to get out fast enough. I don't even know if they showed nearly everything they had, and even if they did,
there wasn't strats.
How can you break down what the problem is with those 3 players who will never play near each other for majority of the game? You'll always run into one of them no matter what site you take.
I mean, looking at the minimap isn't going to do any team VOD review in this game justice. Looking at the agent selection isn't going to do any team that watches this game and VOD reviews this game justice. The one thing you can do from this match is purely do what you do in the game. Look at the center of the screen. Look at that crosshair. When you see a head in it, click it. It's just, it's as plain and simple as that. There's nothing else that really goes down to it. It's the most fundamental way to play. And I mean, there's just aim labs is probably your best bet. I mean, realistically, it's something that you got to be ready to gun out. Otherwise, I mean, this thing is just going to be lost.
Yeah, I think we are waiting to see. We're not exiting out of the stream just yet. We're trying to see if we can actually get that GMU game. It was initially being broadcasted elsewhere. We can see if we do a semi-watch party, like kind of like similar to what we were doing over on the B stream previously with the early stage of the season.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask Shaka to spectate. I know Bulby can't spectate for that, but I mean, even
they're
then,
on map 2. It seems like
if we just press,
I don't know who won map 1. 410 on map 2, so map 2's almost over. So it may not even matter. It may not. Yeah, it seems like things.
So why are there 2 games that are like 40 minutes for the whole series? This is semis, people. We have an operation to run here.
Our director's in our ear right now. What happened? What happened? I was promised a show.
The games don't become high.
The sponsors are wrangling. We got 5 minutes of screen time this week. Like,
I mean, obviously we get paid by the game, but it's like I still want them to be good.
Oh my goodness. This is semis. I felt like we had the same thing though for the SEL LAN, right? Like the early games were really close. The middle games were kind of, and then the end was fabulous, right?
No,
like,
because you got to think about that. What is it? It was the, what was it? It was the play-in for third place game that we just had there as a filler still, because I mean, obviously we knew what was going on there, and that was Niners, and I can't remember who it was. I just remember it was Niners, and it went to like what? It went to like a triple OT on like 2 of the maps.
Was it Niners Clemson?
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was Clemson. I don't think Clemson played to that degree to be able to there. I don't know who it was. I know, but obviously Oklahoma and then Bruton Parker were at the top. I'm trying to even think of who else was even at that LAN. I think it may have actually been Niners Oklahoma. I don't know why.
I
feel like
they wouldn't have played for third.
I know.
They wouldn't have played for
third.
that's
I don't know if it was even the third matchup. Whatever it was, I just know it was Niners. That's how I know that team always plays, though, because they obviously won split 1. And then even after that, they were able to just kind of absolutely run a route and just get themselves into that situation where they were on LAN. And even then, they just didn't perform too hot, but they always made themselves look good, at least against the other people that were there. And then by it came down to the end. I mean, even then, they went out to a point where it's like, if we could give away 3 spots in grands, I mean, we would. But that's just not how the game works. But seeing how things are going, okay. So it looks like we may be on a map number 3 underway here soon.
Yeah. Clemson won map 1. And GMU is leading 11-5 on map 2. So we are...
I'm not going to ask too much because, I mean, I would like to also know what the map picks was, but there's a lot of mystery.
And it's being streamed by the Clemson coach. I mean, we can just send him over. If it's on a bracket, we can just send him over to
we can just
if
raid
they're
it.
okay with that, we can just raid. That would be That would be totally fine. We have confirmation we can in fact raid them. And I think that would be a problem anyways, but yeah, that's something we're gonna have to watch. We're gonna have to stay tuned into it at the very least. So y'all don't go anywhere for that.
Of course, no.
Third map is on the horizon. It's not going to be with me and Dallas in the booth, but it is still going to be a showcase
We'll be
to
in
kind of
chat.
see.
We'll mess around.
We'll be around. We'll be in the chat. We'll chat up a little bit with you guys. You just won't hear our beautiful voices, so to say, at the very least. You won't have to see our ugly mugs either. At the very least, so you get something positive at the end of it. Oh, just make sure y'all stay tuned for the rest of the college action for Valorant, and make sure y'all stay tuned for the finals that are coming up, because there's a whole lot on the line. That 100% guaranteed punch off for LAN, and then the points, even if you don't have that, you could honestly play second in the first season and not play the second semester and still make it to LAN. I believe. Like
there is a
just
chance.
Depends if the top 6 teams this semester just do poorly next semester. It would probably function that way. We'll have to see at the end of the day. But we'll see you guys next week. A raid's coming in. Watch that Georgia GMU game. It's on the line. Who's facing Georgia in our finals? Let's find out.